Hello.
Hi.
It
Yes. Okay, so welcome all to our DMing Academy. I am Headmaster Dogood. Let's start with introductions. Everyone state your name, how long you've been in D&D. Okay, watching the stream while doing this is weird timing. Uh, your experience level and anything else you want to say about yourself. Let's start with words. Sorry, Mr. Dr. Professor Words.
Thank you for correcting yourself. I have worked extremely hard to acquire all of these honorifics, and they must be spoken. As you all have heard, I am Mr. Dr. Professor Words. All of my social media handles are words for sale. Yes, they are for sale, and the cost is really up to you. I also am from a stream team called Stream of Many Things. So if you want to see me actually DM a session, I will be DMing on Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern at Stream of Many Things. And there are several other shows on Tuesday. Well, Tuesdays are going to be a little different coming up, but Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays usually have something going on. I've been in D&D for... Oh, let's see. When did bread get made? Like invented, like sliced bread? No, so about 10 to 15 years. Yeah. I started with 3.5, went into Pathfinder when 4E came out because we all love that abomination. And now I'm in 5E and enjoying it quite well. I've been DMing off and on that entire time, doing one-shots predominantly, and every now and then unsuccessfully doing campaigns. And that's all I can think of right now. So Glitch, I believe, is next.
All right. Thank you for that wondrous introduction there. I am Glitch, and here I'm labeled as the Glitch in the Matrix. Don't really know how I got here, but I'm here. I've been in a D&D player and DM off and on for about 6 years, mostly DMing more than anything else. Okay amount of experience, and hoping to help people learn how to do it themselves. I think we're on to our resident teaspoon here.
Okay. I'm not the best intros because I've never really done live before, but hi, I'm Teaspoon. I've been playing D&D for bordering on about 4-5 years now. Been a DM for only a measly 2, but I've definitely picked up a lot of things along the way from other DMs, advice, and mainly trial and error on my own games. So I'm hoping to share the information I've learned over these 5 years, and hopefully get a few new DMs going. And the wonderful Joe.
Hi, I'm Joe Steiner. You'll find me on TikTok as Joe Steiner, but I'm also the DM for Heathen Gaming Table on Twitch. We try and stream 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off on Saturdays. I've been playing D&D since I was 16. Been DMing for the past 2 years, mostly because of my own weird schedule. And I'm most probably only here because I know how to make maps well.
No, we love you for more than that.
Hey,
We also love your
You're here. You're here not just because you make maps well. You're here because you make maps very well.
Well,
I mean, he has just shown us an example before this, and I was rather impressed myself.
Like, I would probably pay you to make a map.
Easily.
I'm most probably the only one with a degree in what I'm going to be talking about here.
Lies.
I totally earned my rank of headmaster by claiming it.
I'm not going to brag about my B-Tech, but we'll stay with B-Tech.
But yeah, that's just me.
Yes, Ivy, I called dibs.
And I think Do Good. I know you kind of introduced us, but how about you introducing yourself?
Yes, hi, my name is Dogood. You may call me Headmaster, Your Excellency.
Hey, don't be taking all my other extra titles.
Do good will be just fine.
You have enough titles.
No, I do not. I claim them all. Anyways,
Wait, you're missing Lord.
I was about to say Lord.
okay, I'll give you Lord.
Place that does
Lord
sound
Dogood
good.
has a nice ring to it. Anyways, I've been involved in D&D for the past 12-ish years. I don't know how time works anymore. I still think it's March 2020. For majority of it, I have been DMing. I've started out playing 3.5. I kind of skipped 4 because 4, and I've been doing 5 ever since. I started out DMing mainly one-shots. Then that grew into campaigns, and now I'm currently playing in 2 campaigns, one of which will be streamed Wednesdays and DM'd by our very own Mr. Dr. Professor Words. And another one that I stream on my own channel, as well as I have 3 campaigns I currently DM. So, with everyone, what was it, Words?
Oh, I was just like, ADHD. This actually pertains to that. Tuesdays I play in a game on that One Blonde Nerd stream. It's affectionately called ADHD indeed. So if you're neurodivergent, come watch a bunch of neurodivergent people try to play D&D.
I watched their last session. It was a really good session.
I'll have to go give it a watch myself, to be honest with you. I'm normally off. You say it was Wednesdays?
Tuesdays.
I'm still off Tuesdays anyway, so I'll give it a watch.
Yeah,
All right, so before we pass this off to Professor Teaspoon and Joe with the degree, to give you guys a little more of a essentials guide to D&D, I wanted to point out something that's in everyone's DM's guide, which, by the way, if you want to be a DM, I highly suggest getting DM's guide. If you go to the credits page,
here we go.
like this page here, there is a disclaimer next to the picture. And I shall read that disclaimer for you because I find it amazing. Disclaimer. Wizards of the Coast does not officially endorse the following tactics, which are guaranteed to maximize your enjoyment as a dungeon master. First, always keep a straight face and say okay no matter how ludicrous or doomed the player's plan of action is. Second, no matter what happens, pretend that you intended all along for everything to unfold the way it did. Third, if you're not sure what to do next, feign illness, end session early, and plot your next move. When all else fails, roll a bunch of dice behind your screen, study them for a moment with a look of deep concern mixed with regret, let loose a heavy sigh, and announce that Tiamat swoops down from the sky and attacks.
Yep, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Straight out of the DM's guide. So, Professor Teaspoon and Joe with the degree, why don't you take it away and give us an essentials guide to being a DM?
Okay. Oh god. Oh my god. Everything's starting on my computer for some bizarre reason. I've got applications popping up everywhere. Give me a second. Joe, please start.
Qualifications for professors.
So, from my experience of DMing, I've mostly done it over Discord. So you don't even really need dice. An excellent tool for Discord's DMing is Avra. Learn how to use that, and you're off to a great start. But more importantly, you need a party. You need someone to play with, preferably someone that you like, in order for the party to last long. But also people that you're comfortable with and are comfortable with you. You can go about this many ways. People that you grew up with, people that you work with, or just random people on the internet, like on Ivy's lovely Discord.
Exactly. Or even family. Like I know I've got a couple of family members that play it, and I've done a one shot or two with them. So I mean, family, if anything, are actually better than probably strangers that you've got to get to know. I'd hate to say it like that, but I mean, just as well though, if you are getting to know people on from every server, obviously have a chat with them first. I find is good as well. So if you get to know the person before you ask them to play, or if even just have a quick chat whilst you're telling them about the game, and then you'll kind of have a rough idea.
I mean, I run a D&D campaign for my family in private, and in all honesty, for my fiance and my father and my three brothers, it is most probably some of the funniest ways that you can get, especially kids, to come out of their shell. But you also need an idea. You can just go buy an adventure book if you have the money to purchase it, or you can write down a couple of notes on a notepad and work from there, in all honesty. I mean, I in all honesty, a lot of my worlds that I've built has just started off as a load of random verbal diarrhea on a notepad, and I just expanded from there.
That's a weird image that I've just got from popping there, but very, very, very well put. I mean, when I normally get an idea, it's literally like you say, bits and pieces, but always, you can never have, I think, as a rubbish idea. Like, it's either a good or bad, but you'll kind of work that out along the way whether it's going to work out or not. But you'll never have a rubbish idea where you have to just scrap it when you think, oh, it sounds crap. If you like the sound of it, go with it. You'll find out whether it's a good idea or not. I mean, when I first started out the Star Wars D&D thing that I run, I thought, well, it sounds all right, but it's not great. And I mean, now I'm on the final session, and I'm more than happy that I've run it because it turned out to be an actually really awesome game. So, yeah, just if you have an idea, write it down. Even if it's just like 3 things that you've come up with, put it on paper, then you can go from there and expand on it.
Any happy little thought?
I can.
Any happy little thought.
I can, one of the things that I've learned as a DM, as far as like inspiration for campaigns, use existing media. And so, like, do you like Zelda? Well, guess what? There's a plenty of dungeons that Zelda has made that you can kind of sort of like adjust and mix up things and make it your own. Same thing with like certain movies, like any sort of like fantasy movie is really easily turned into a D&D campaign. And I will give you a movie that I discovered that I'm going to use in my campaign at some point. They are actually Norwegian movies. They're called Ashlad. They are fantastically fantasy, weird movies, because I love those types of movies. And honestly, I watched both of them, and they are essentially a D&D campaign. Like, it's fantastic. So, like, that's like if you are having trouble coming up with ideas, and you're like, I don't know what to do for my players. I want to DM. Like, just use things that you already know. Existing media is extremely helpful.
It definitely is. I ran a one-shot last week, and I stole legit everything straight out of a show called Merlin.
Oh, I know Merlin.
BBC. I stole everything. Yep. I stole my entire plot, the world, everything.
And it doesn't necessarily even have to be games or books or movies. You can take historical events that you love to obsess over and warp it into a fantasy setting, or even warp the D&D rules into that setting and put that onto the table. One world that I'm working on is a reimagining of the worlds during 1745 during the Jacobite Rebellion, and I've warped that into fantasy and put that onto it. Well, working on putting that onto a table for my players. But there's a lot to navigate with that sort of thing, in all honesty.
Yeah, I mean, one of my friends, he decided against it now, but he was going to do the where the Roman Empire first marched to Britannia, and it was going to focus around a small unit of obviously legionaries, which you were, and you were going to basically march all the way to Britain, doing all these encounters and stuff, and making your way there. Which ultimately was taking so long to write. Yeah, you cross Europe. Go on, you do that. Write it all down. But no, it was a good idea. Again, like, I'm not saying it was a bad idea. It was a brilliant idea. It's just it was so long and so tedious. He just gave up.
All right, so we've covered a bit of the basics of coming up with an idea. Definitely down the road, we'll go more in depth with the whole lesson plan about storyboarding, coming up with ideas, inspiration. So, words?
Oh, just like how to transfer those ideas to actual paper, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. We'll get into that in a lot more detail later, but hopefully just having the basis of an idea, you can start planning what you want to do.
Yeah.
Glitch, you've gotten your idea written down. You've thought of a couple players that you want to play with. What communications do you think we should be implementing with players and DMs to create characters, set expectations?
First is face-to-face conversation, or over Discord call or something like that. You want to have open communication, back and forth. You don't want to blindside them with a table rule, something that you have. You don't want to blindside them with even part of the basic D&D rules. Make sure they're well informed. There we go. Open communication overall is a very important part of that, and the most important approach to a D&D table, I would say.
Anyone else have any notes on having this level of open communication and setting expectations?
Yeah, as far as that, like, you definitely want to make sure everyone's feels safe, and that they are going to be listened to as well. So it's not going to be a one-way communication.
Yeah.
You know, you are the DM, so it's your responsibility to make sure that the table is a safe place for everybody. So you want to give the players the trust in you as well as you trusting them.
Yeah, I mean, whenever I begin to run my, sorry, Joe, just
No,
minute.
No, you can go ahead if you want.
Okay, I was just going to explain, like, whenever I've DM'd, I've always took each individual player aside before continuing the campaign, ensuring what they're, what's safe in the campaign, what they're uncomfortable with, every little detail about them, just trying to make sure that I'm not going to cause any upset. And even I've said to players, if we're part way through the session, tell me to stop if you feel uncomfortable, and we'll just skip that bit. I always value communication with the players, because I think it's probably one of the most important things when you're a DM, is just listen to your players and understand how their comfort and their actual comfort zones.
So, like, I've had that experience with adult players when I've been working with friends and playing with other people that I stream with. But a unique experience that I've had with playing with my family, my three brothers are on the spectrum, and they're fairly young. So I can have as much open communication with them as possible, but they won't say certain things to me because I'm their older brother. They don't want to say anything. And that's where I have open communication with my dad to talk about like how they're actually feeling, how they're actually reacting, and what they're taking away from a session and taking home. If they're feeling bad, then they're not going to tell me, but my dad is, and that's something to keep in mind if you're going to be playing, like putting on sessions for younger people, particularly those that are on the spectrum, is not just have this conversation, but also have a open communication with someone that they trust, a guardian or a parent, possibly, if you have that trust with the parents.
One thing that you could, if you don't have that open communication resource with people that are on spectrum or may have issues with social cues and things of that nature,
Excuse me.
one useful tool that I have recently started using that was shown to me is consent forms. They're really easy to find on Google, but I'm sure we can come up with some form of like packet that we can potentially make for you that includes one. And if they want to be anonymous, what you can also do is like they can you can put it in like a place where they can upload it without their name on it, so you don't know who's uploading it, or figure out a way to where like you don't know who is doing it. That way they can fill it out comfortably. I haven't run across any of that issue, but that's one way you can use them. But essentially how I use it is if there's anyone on the table that has a hard no on something, then that is not going to be included at all in the campaign. So like I said, if one person is like, nope, I don't want this, then the entire table is not going to experience it. You don't pick and select what you do based off of like a democracy thing, especially when it comes to safety and comfort. It is, as soon as one person says no, that's it.
One of the biggest priorities of a DM, even above setting a good story and having a fun session, is making sure each and every person at the table, DM included, feels safe and comfortable with those that they are playing with.
This is just probably a topic for potentially later, but something that we can go over is DM drop. So like that's something to be aware of as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if we want to discuss that now or save that for later, it's.
You want to give a basic synopsis of it, and then we can do more detail and really flush out a full lesson.
So DM drop is kind of like your own self-care. After, like, if you're running a session and you know that session is going to be very intense, especially with roleplay and emotions, and I mean, you are essentially guiding these characters and your players through some potentially like traumatic, or even just like high emotion scenes, and like you're the one that's behind it. So like that does take a toll on yourself, even if you may not feel it immediately. And DM drop usually happens right after a session. So be sure to practice self-care as well. One thing I for player self-care too is after sessions, I usually, like someone said, like ask the players like, hey, are you okay? Are you doing well? But make sure you do that for yourself too.
That actually goes nicely into one of the other things that a DM needs in order to go through. It's not necessarily experience, but just a willingness and just a willingness to do this for your players. Say you're in a party and suddenly you don't have a DM anymore. It's that willingness to stand up and produce these worlds and these scenarios for your players, but you need to keep in mind that you need to look after yourself, which will be going into with DM drop later on in future sessions. But you need to be able to maintain that willingness, that excitement, that eagerness to do it. Otherwise, you'll quite quickly find yourself not enjoying it anymore. And you'll start having a bad time with it yourself, not necessarily your players, but yourself in particular.
That will usually immediately or very soon begin to reflect back at the table as well.
Yeah.
Yes, make sure that your sessions you are running are something that you're having fun with yourself too. You're not just the narrator who's making a game for other people. You are also playing alongside them. You're just in a different role. And definitely in a future lesson, we will go into a lot of different ways that you can help yourself from hitting this DM drop, dealing with it, preventing burnout, making sure that you keep a constant line of communication with your players, because communication starts as soon as you recruit the players. It never ends. You want to always have that feedback. You always want to be having that open line of communication. You want them to feel like they can come to you.
Dejo, if you want to pop in that as well, like that's a good
yeah, so on the flip side of that, like you can be really enjoying yourself, but you may be, and everyone is susceptible to this, and it's not really down to personality, it's down to how you recognize it and manage it. But managing your own ego, you can quickly become an overbearing personality at the table because you've got this amount of power over the world and over the players that you can end up shoehorning players because that is not going the way that they that you want it to, or you're treating a certain character poorly because you're not particularly friendly towards the player themselves, and you need to recognize that in yourself and manage it. Make yourself an approachable person. Make yourself that person that people can trust to be in that position at the table.
I just want to add one thing before we move on to the next thing. Like, a part of the GM ego is your plans will most of the time not go according to plan. Don't let that frustration affect the outcome. And I'm sure we'll go into much greater detail about that, but that is something to keep in your brain, because like, you can spend a week or however long on planning something out, and your players will be like, you know what, we're not going to do that. And like, it can be frustrating, but like, we can teach you how to manage that.
Obviously, that became a habit that I was doing in the beginning of one of my most recent campaign. Like, as like the first few sessions where they would do something that I wasn't planned for, and rather than going, oh well, haha, yes, and just kind of like trying to improv it a bit better, I would just go, oh no. But thankfully, I got out of that habit.
Yeah.
Very quickly.
It's an easy habit to get into, a hard one to break, but something that will be well worth keeping your distance from for everyone involved.
Yeah, like I now have like the book in the bottom hand corner, and I'm just ready to just go, well, I have this, and just drag something across. Just like that, this should work.
For that, we can go ahead and segue on into what to expect from a session 0 and session 1.
Yes.
Yeah, and honestly, the session 0 is a wonderful, wonderful thing to have. You should always do a session 0 if you are able to, because that is setting the expectations for yourself and the players what to expect from the game. So if you want to run a game that is a bit more story and linear in a sense, like, think of like the Adventure Zone, if any of you are familiar with that type of like D&D campaign, then you can set that expectations with your players and see if they're comfortable with that, if they are okay with doing that. That way, that can help you with your planning and help you communicate with your players in the future about like how the story and the campaign is going to evolve.
It's also an opportunity for you to decide on the basis of that, what sort of narrative are you wanting it to be? A player-driven narrative where they drive the story and they decide what they do, or are you going to be doing it where you present choices and then they get to have their pick? Such as if you're running an adventure book, it's more about running modules and running choices aside from a sandbox where they literally just go, "Oh, I fancy going way far down south to the south of Icewind Dale for no apparent reason." But that's something that you can clarify on session 0.
Yes,
Yeah.
it also gives you the opportunity to lay down your house rules. This could be anything between how you rule things different from what's in the book. It could be a bunch of DMs do it one way, including the very famous Critical Role cast, but you want to do something different.
Yeah.
It keeps
I think
everyone on the same page and they know what to expect as far as your own rules.
I think as well, session 0 is very important as well, just to lay down with a few bits about the world in itself. Like, obviously not too much, because then you don't want to give away the story, but like just give them a kind of like a rough general knowledge of what their character would know about the world, depending on obviously where they're from and what have you in the game. I think as well, it's if there's any questions about character creation or anything like that, they can be answered there and then, rather than being stopped halfway through the first session and being like, okay, fair enough. And that can get quite frustrating. So it's always useful having the session 0. Don't ever drop it and jump straight into session 1.
Yeah,
Done it too many times, it never works.
That is one thing I
session
personally
0.
use.
Oh, glitch. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. That is one thing I personally use session 0s for, is a prime time to give the simple amount of deposition and information on the world. That way, they're not hopping in with the, as Teaspoon mentioned, the questions that completely break any form of immersion from even beginning to happen. So,
Yes, I like using session 0 for character creation. I always tell my players, oh, you can use the time between now and session 0 to make your character, or you can make it day of, or you can change it a million times in between. I like having session 0 where I always make sure that there's enough time so that people can make their characters. We go over our ground rules, and then I run a one-shot for them. Something completely unrelated to the world so that they don't get any spoilers for what might happen in the campaign, but so they can playtest the characters that they made, especially for newer players trying to try something new. Maybe this person has never played a monk before and they're trying Way the Open Hand, and then they realize at the end of the one shot, I don't like Way the Open Hand. It's better them realize these things now than in sessions 1, 2, 3, 7 that they don't want to play that anymore.
It's also a useful tool for tying, if you're going to be doing that, for tying in their backstory so they all meet in the same place. So say one character's got their backstory way off on one part of the continent and another person has their backstory on the other end. You can role play it so that they decide that you present the choice to go to this place where you're going to be tying them together and packing them off and linking them.
A part of the tying in the backstory is this is a perfect opportunity for you to create the goals of each character and the goals of the group, because that's going to make your life a lot easier if you know why they are doing the things they're doing. Because if none of them have any goals, if their backstories aren't tied together somehow, if they don't have a reason to be in a group together, inexperienced players may have a difficulty with role-playing a reason why their characters are going to be together. Even some experienced players, because like, well, this character is a certain way, I want to play it this way, but right now I don't have a reason for this character to actually go with the group. Like, and if they don't have a reason for being there, then they're not going to be as engaging. They're not going to want to be there. So session 0, like, ties that backstory together, gives them the goals for the reason why they're doing. And myself, like, I want everyone to have fun. So like certain characters and certain players, I might even give a little bit of meta knowledge, so they have a bigger understanding of the picture that I'm trying to create with them. So like, but you do that at your own risk, because meta knowledge, depending on the player, can affect how they play things. And it is a risk to give that type of information out. But to me, that also helps them kind of flesh out things for themselves. Like, oh, I know this thing is going to happen, or I know this bit of information that my character doesn't know, but it's going to help me understand motives.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of letting meta knowledge lace. I hate metagaming. I think I've played with the group for so long that hated metagaming. I think it's kind of like rubbed off. It was not tolerated in that session. If you were caught metagaming, you were penalised. End of story. So I do allow like 1 or 2 chances. Like, dude, pack it in. It's annoying. And then if they don't, that's when I'll start saying, look, now you're taking the mess.
Yeah, and like, this isn't necessarily for them to meta game. It's just like, this is a story prudent piece of information that helps clarify any sort of confusion of like, okay, why am I doing this? Like this is like, and it wouldn't, like, I'm not going to give information that's going to affect the story as a whole. It's just more of like character information of like, this is an information, this is a interesting backstory tidbit of information that you may not know about this character, but it's going to be prudent. And like, it's only in situations where it will help more than hurt. And that's something that we can go into, as well as like learning when to kind of give that little bit. Like I said, I don't give too much. I just give just enough to where like, okay, that makes sense. Like, to clear up confusion.
You can also disguise this in, like, I don't know, they say they're from a certain place in your world, and you can say, right, here's a rumor or a folk tale or something about this location or this person or this organization, where you can turn around and reveal them the meta without actually revealing them the meta, where you can be like, this is what you know of this place or this person or organization, where it is more encasing of role play opposed to just straight out saying, yeah, these guys are bad.
That's where tools that I've either used, encountered, come into effect a lot. I've heard of ones some people call some the rumor mill. Other ones, I've heard one called the newspaper effect, where it's effectively simple information spreads. This is something you've heard.
I'm just reading.
I'm
just reading.
Session zeros, like as we cover, like they are extremely important to help your characters, your players, kind of feel that connection and give them that reason why. It helps you figure out like what type of game you're going to be running, and setting those expectations, which leads into our session 1. As Headmaster Dogood pointed out, sometimes it is a good idea to run a one-shot with them to let them get a feel for the characters. I personally haven't really done that, but that's not a bad idea. I try to encourage people to play what they feel like they'll have fun, regardless of party build. But you're always going to have those people, well, we need a healer, we need a tank. It's like, well, like with an experienced DM, and as you get more experience, you're going to learn how to balance things, even if a party does not have those things. So encourage what they want to play. If they all want to play bards, you might have a 4-party bard extravaganza,
I would DM that.
Yeah, like
I have
turned it into like a 4-player bard party extravaganza. And they are a new upcoming boy band in this world, and they have to go to a band competition and compete against other performers.
I mean that would work.
Like,
No. The 4 bards and the paladin is the manager.
boom, there you go. You know, like
I think it'd be more the rogues, the manager.
Oh no, not the rogue.
the rogue is the producer, because they're the ones that go out and get all the like contracts and or I don't know, like they help promote. They're the promoter. There we go.
Yeah, and the manager's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah. Your druid could be a roadie because they can, wild shape and, into like a gorilla and set up all this, like, look at it. Like, we're coming up, we're spitballing.
We're figuring things out.
Like,
this, my friends, is brainstorming.
yeah, this is literally how you come up with a campaign. So
It's sometimes it comes to you.
Yeah.
But it definitely play what you like to play. Don't worry about the compositions. I remember the first time I ever played 5e.
Hang on, it's come.
I'll wait.
Oh, something got stuck.
Okay. I was playing a cleric because I liked playing clerics. First words out of a party member's mouth. Great, we'll have a healer. In the 8 months I played that cleric, I killed 3 times, 2 of which was myself. You don't need to fill the niches. You just need to play what you have fun with and what everyone at the table has fun playing with.
Yes. The moment someone says you have a healer, no, you don't.
Yeah, like, because war cleric may not want to heal. Yeah.
Nope.
So that's one of those things that as a DM, like, you're gonna learn how to balance things to your party composition, because you don't want to shoehorn players into something that they don't want to play. So your session 1, you can run a one shot. That's a great idea. That's honestly, a good way to make sure that yes, this is the class they want to play. I think I try to have enough communication with the players to where, like, and include enough interesting backstory with what they've chosen that, like, that's going to help the excitement. To me, it's not necessarily what the class you're playing, it's how that character is going to be integrated into the world. Because in the session that I'm coming up, going to be DMing, like, I've literally created lore in my world for the players in the game. Like, they a part of the backstory it essentially is a whole new lore thing that I didn't even think about in my own world, and I'm like, and that's how I'm getting them interested and excited to play the game, is they are now actually have affected this world.
Words, I hate to break it to you, that lore is going to be broken, shattered into a million smithereens. You are aware of that, aren't you?
Oh yeah, well, like, the lore is more backstory oriented. Basically,
fair enough.
To give you, like, a kind of a synopsis, like, you can use this, I don't care. Basically, there's an ancient civilization that was destroyed in this world about 545 years ago, and there's ruins scattered all over the world of this civilization. 5 years ago, well, about 10 years ago, actually, the party got together by their story, and they became the first ever group to successfully excavate one of these ruins. And what happened was it actually created a new career path for people within this world. And they were, like, super famous for like 5 years, and then something happened, they broke up, and now 5 years after that, they're coming back together. So, like, that's part of the world now. Like,
so that just reminded me of one of my session 1s where I had an artificer and a rogue. Now the rogue had where you have the condition where you want to steal stuff but you don't necessarily remember stealing stuff. She had a penchant for stealing people's buttons, and she would steal so many buttons and people's trousers would be dropping down. It's first session, and the artificer bloody invents the zipper in the world. And they called themselves the Button Cartel for the rest of the campaign, where they go around
That is
Button.
great.
and then sell them zippers. So, yeah.
My problem is with that. Like, that's very counterproductive. So then, how would you sell on the buttons when people wouldn't need them?
She wasn't in it to sell the buttons. She just had a bag of holding filled with buttons.
Button horde.
Oh my
Buttons.
goodness me!
D&D's new caltrop.
Yeah, like, so don't be afraid to actually create lore for your players. Don't be stingy.
Oh, we have a bit of a. I think we have someone asking for some advice here.
Do we want to kind of save that to where when we actually go to the questions, or do we want to?
Yes, I will
we'll
screenshot that. I'll
Question.
screenshot that.
Yes, make sure we can get to all questions because we want all questions answered.
Yes, we will be taking questions and answering anything.
Yes, that'll be our second half after bathroom breaks.
So session one. We've kind of talked about the leading up to actually session one. Session one is your introduction to the world. It's your introduction to the characters. The most important piece, I think, is ensuring that all the player characters are introduced. They get that opportunity to kind of describe who they are, what they look like, a little bit of individual thing, but also making sure they come together in a way that's going to push the story forward. I
Rewind. Play.
Brain malfunction. Okay. Mr. Dr. Professor Words.exe has crashed. Anyways.
Those were some words there.
Yeah.
Control. Delete task manager.
Oh gosh. Anyways.
All right. So pushing the story forward.
Don't be afraid to use cliches. Cliches are cliches because they work. Everybody can meet in a tavern. Everybody, it's a good starting.
Have the dragon.
It's a good starting.
Cliche only becomes a cliche one way.
So cliches you can use is stuff like a tavern or the Skyrim start, where you're all bound in a car.
You're finally awake.
You're finally awake, yes.
We're trying to cross the border.
You and that horse thief over there. Come on, let's not start going through the Skyrim script because I could do this all night.
So there are many ways you can get them into the same location. I personally, in the last session one I ran, they all had their own separate reasons for coming to the city, but they all led them to the same location where, one of them wanted to join the Hunters Guild, one of them wanted to join the library, one of them wanted to join the guards, but all of them were trying to separately solve the same mystery. So the party ended up meeting each other trying to solve the same mystery, and that's how they had their first mini adventure.
Don't mind me while I go grab some dice.
Do you want some dice?
Yeah,
my dice upstairs. This is not fair.
God,
I'm prepared for class next time.
Yes.
Don't question my ethics.
That's an 11 for the dragon to seduce the bard.
That's the bard just gonna let them.
I'm just saying someone should make some form of bard trap content on TikTok. Unless someone already has, but I don't know.
I'm pretty sure someone has. This is the human race we're talking about. There are 8 billion people. Someone
There's
definitely
content
has.
for everything. Anyway, so session one.
Somebody has. It's me.
Who said that?
Yeah, session one. Let's get back on track.
Yes, so the party coming together and starting an adventure together. Even if it's not main plot stuff, they're still finding a reason to come together and not ditch each other. Whether it's we almost died together, but we didn't, so maybe we should stick together kind of thing. Or maybe they have intertwining backstories, or they find out that they have the same goals in mind.
I mean, that's what I really like about because I'm going to be running a Cyberpunk Red campaign soon, and when you read through the rules on that, it tells you find a way to make these people stick, because if you're going to be in the actual world, people don't stick together really that often. So it really makes you think of an idea on how you're going to get them to stay together, whether it's by force or by obviously a common factor. Or common goal, that sort of thing. So you, like you say, you have to really think of an idea for that. You can't just say, "Okay, now you're friends."
And it doesn't have to be a complicated idea.
No, it doesn't.
And there's a few different ways. I like sometimes the players, like in my campaign, they knew each other at one point. So that's gonna help have that bridge of communication. They may not like each other right now, but like they know each other. If they don't know each other, which is very possible, Critical Role I think has done a really good job allowing the role play and throwing them into a situation that's going to make them realize that they work well as a team. And if they realize this, then they're like, okay, we can do this as a team. Like, let's do it. Like, we're all kind of sort of going in the same direction. We can travel together, and maybe we can make some extra money. Like that kind of stuff.
And not die.
Yeah.
Safety in numbers. And the players, they know that they're going to end up being a party anyways. And if they're the type of players that would try to actively split the party or prevent the party from gathering in the first place, that's a conversation that needs to be had in session 0.
But there's another thing that you not shoehorn your players into doing, but advise your players about in session 0 is in session 1, your character is going to need a personality that is going to be readily going to not bond, but at least work with the other characters. If everyone's an edgelord, it becomes increasingly difficult to get them to work together.
I mean, competing edgelords trying to be one up and best each other can be quite the idea too.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where that goes hand in hand with the expectations of the type of game that you want to play as players and what type of game you want to run as a DM. Because like if they're all edgelords, then you might have a murder hobo campaign on your hands.
Yes.
I mean, but come on, who doesn't love a murder hobo campaign? Because it's just eventful and it's funny.
Yeah,
I just think it's hilarious watching a murder hobo campaign. I'm just like, you kill that person, go for it. I just don't care anymore.
I find it more entertaining with the potential consequences.
And that actually seems like a decent enough segue to the last thing we'll talk about before going on a quick break. Adapting to player choices and not shoehorning your story, such as if you find out that all your players decide they want to play edgelord rogues.
Yep.
Or all of them want to play particular bards or the like.
Yeah, that has happened far too often for me to even fathom, to be honest with you. Like, I've had people where they've literally gone, I want to be the leadership kind, I want to be in charge, and it's just like, no, I want to be in charge. It's like, oh no, now we're going to have a leader off, this is not good. And then you've got your 2 edgelords, and it's just, like you say, get the personalities right. But when it comes to adapting to players' choices, I'm going off on tangents here. I'm tired. Leave me alone.
I mean, DMing is going on a fun tangent, so you're all right.
Oh, it is. It is all the time. What were we talking about?
You're a good DM.
Yeah. But no, when you adapt to player choices, like I find it's easier around. So listen to the whole choice, obviously what they want to do, and I like to do the improv in the background. So like if it goes completely against what you were expecting to happen, I just do it. Took it behind the screen and it's going, yep. Yeah, keep talking, and just kind of stall them.
And so, like, say you have spent hours, I mean, just like painstaking hours creating this perfect, I mean, you think it's like chef's kiss, perfect BBEG, and you're like, oh, this is going to be such a great encounter. And then your players kill it in one round somehow. Like,
War clerk.
The beauty of a nat 20.
yeah. Sometimes that does happen, and that's part of not shoehorning your story and what you do, and like you're kind of going back into like don't let your frustration show. I mean, like, you can have fun with it. You can be like, really, like, you're killing this in one turn, okay, all right, like, but going on along with like not shoehorning your stuff in the player's choices, but also not denying the things that your players do, as long as it isn't meta or things like that. Like, let them do things like that. Like, if they figure out how to kill your BBEG in one turn and like it's legitimate, like, don't deny them that.
I think whilst on that topic as well, number one, practice your poker face. If you don't have a good poker face, practice it, because oh my god, it will save your life. Like, it's so important.
I feel like Teaspoon over here practices his poker face with a teaspoon.
Joe, you were going to say something?
One thing that I'd be vigilant about personally is, while not shoehorning your characters, your players, is also watching out for possibly toxic behavior in a player's choices that may be detrimental to the other player's experience. Say, for example, they all go into castle on the lookout for a treasure hoard. The rogue goes in, manages to get to it first before anyone enters the room, and just steals it all, and then manages to deceive their way into convincing the rest of the characters that there was no treasure, but actually the players know that there was a fuck ton there. And it would be meta for the other players to turn around and be like, stop bullshitting us. But you'd have to approach it delicately, but watch out for that sort of behavior. And I would say that would be a sort of, I don't know, there would be some exceptions to the shoehorning rule.
If you don't mind, like, if you're to kind of go off of that thought is, as a GM, it's also good to pay attention to the consistency of behavior. And I think that's kind of like what you're getting into, is like, if the rogue in the entire campaign has been like that, and that's been an expectation, and that's a behavior that has been consistent, then you can handle that a little bit better. Like, like, hey, the rogue, like, has been consistent. Yeah, it's frustrating to you as players, but give them opportunities to discover that behavior. Give them opportunities to actions have consequences for the player that's trying to steal the gold and everything. But if the rogue hasn't been doing that the entire campaign, and then all of a sudden they see all this big loot and they get greedy as a player, and make their character do that, then that's where, as a DM, you can probably step in and have probably a greater consequence to those actions, because they're breaking that character behavior. If there's no logical reason why they would do this, punish them. Like, that's you as a DM. Or you can warn them first if you want to be at least a little bit benevolent.
Benevolent.
You can be like, hey, if you do this action, there will be consequences. Give them an opportunity to back out. Or you can just be like, are you sure you want to do that? Give those little warnings. And, if they follow through, then be like, I warned you. This is the consequence of your actions now. Because your behavior has changed and there's no logical reason for it. That kind of helps your players stay in their own choices.
Yeah. No, I second that. Like that's
Yes, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, and if it's a behavior that makes the game no longer fun for people at the table, just because it's something that's within, oh, this is what my character would do, if it's ruining the fun for everyone at the table of like, well, why do I even bother picking up the gold if I know the rogue is just going to steal it every time? If that consistence of the rogue always stealing your gold and you never having gold because the rogue is always stolen it, that I could see being a okay, that's starting to diminish the fun aspect of the game for the player. It's something that needs to be addressed. Just because as DMs we're supposed to encourage the players to have freedom of will and freedom of choice, we are also supposed to be the adults at the table who set the tone, make sure that everyone's getting along, make sure that everyone's having fun while everyone's being able to have this open level of creativity with their choices.
I just thought of a good way you could actually get the rogue as well. I'm always thinking of ideas. There's always like just like constantly milling away on autopilot. Like you could just get like a small patch of gold and just go patch gold, patch gold, patch gold, patch. Just leave a trail, and there's right end. There's this big bear trap with a big pouch of gold in it, and it's like,
ooh, piece candy.
yeah, ooh, patch of gold, ooh, patch of gold, ooh, patch of gold, ooh, patch of.
Sometimes refraining from shoehorning your players as well can be quite rewarding. Spoilers for Icewind Dale, Rime of the Frost Maiden. So party went out to retrieve some iron ingots for some dwarves. Some goblins managed to get hold of it, and the bard went along with them. And she was a high charisma, like extremely high charisma bard for her level. Managed to persuade them not to take the iron ingots, and instead went into town, bought them 2 cows, brought them back, and bribed them with it. And then later on, they came across. They got tasked with a peace mission to a goblin fortress. Went in there, found out that the head of the goblins was actually a gnome in disguise. And he was like, please get me out of here. I don't know why I'm the leader. And the way the book portrays it is when you're trying to get him out, they're all going to be like, they're trying to kidnap him. No, she established a behavior of bribing them, said, we'll buy you 5 more cows and he'll come with us. And they were like, and rolled high on charisma again. And I was like, I can't say no to that. That's actually quite clever. But she established that behavior, and it was interesting, and it's quite rewarding for yourself and the players for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, the whole like, well, this is just the way my character is, so I'm going to behave. Like, don't let that lead to, as what Duguay was saying, like, don't let that lead to toxic behavior. That is a very common thing for just people to do. Is like, this is just how I am. Like, we understand, like, you have to accept certain things about people, but like, that does not give you a free pass to be a toxic person, abusive person, or anything of that nature. Even in D&D, there's going to be character growth, and if they are refusing to grow as a character, well, you can kind of push that along. And if they continue to fight back and not want to change their behavior or grow or learn their lessons, then that is part of some of the DM responsibilities, as taking that player aside after a session in private and communicate with them and say, look, I've been noticing these behaviors. It's affecting the dynamic of the group. Give them the opportunity to change. And if they continue, then that's when, as a DM, you can always ask them to leave your table. Because as we said before, the most important thing of a DM is to maintain the safety and fun of the group. And that includes making sure the players are not affecting that and removing them from that situation to maintain that safety. And it's not you, and don't ever make it personal. That's another thing, is like, don't be attacking, don't accuse anybody of anything. Like, just have that open communication with players.
You know, I consider it easy just to get a mimic and just change their bed into a mimic. Just, you know, when the character wakes up, the bed just goes like that. It's easy, problem solved.
Yeah.
But no, no, I see what you mean. It's very important to address that. I've had to address that before, and it's not a nice talk to have, because at the end of the day, you know, you don't want conflict between you and your player. But I think it's a talk that needs to be had if necessary, and you know, you can't not avoid it. If it needs to be had, have it. And
Yeah.
I learned that from, I believe, all of you here. Like, you all said to me about that particular play I had, you know, address it, and I did, and it worked. So always step in where needs be.
Because sometimes the player doesn't realize how much they're actually affecting the party. They may think like, "Oh, this is just a fun thing I'm doing," and like they don't realize that the behaviors that they're doing are, you know, hurting people. And like, and we're all human. You know, we all make mistakes. We may not pick up on certain things. You know, like we all think we're funny, but sometimes we're not. You know,
You saying I'm not funny?
you know, looking.
Excuse you, I am gorgeous.
You are.
Yes, in your head, yes.
Yes.
Damn right.
I'm sure.
The funhouse mirror is a thing.
House of Mirrors.
Yeah,
All right, so
I think. Yeah,
I think we just heard Do Good then. He's just like, well.
Yeah. It all circles back to open communication, making sure that your players trust you, that you trust your players. You know, address things, and also a lot of this will tie into self-care as well, because like you as a DM, you may have to handle some situations with real people that might be stressful to you, and we can kind of help you along in the future with how to handle certain situations that you may come across. That way you can keep yourself safe and your players.
yes, and for adapting to the player's creativity, let them get creative. Over time, everyone learns how to balance between railroading to the point of just being able to push things forward, so they're not spending 6 sessions trying to buy one stick. Because yes, I've seen it. But not railroading to them to the fact where, okay, we're gonna go mission A, B, C, D without actually hitting any detours along the way.
Yeah.
No downtime in between can be just as detrimental.
Yeah, I mean, it's worse when your players take unnecessary downtime and sit there on a planet for 3 days and think, oh, you know, it's fine. We're just going to go shopping for 3 days. It's like, you're on the planet where you need to be. Go do your job. It's just sat there in silence.
But at the same time, don't be afraid to give your players that beach episode.
The what?
Yeah. The beach
Just don't
episode.
attempt to make volleyball rules in D&D.
Yeah, like any anime fan will understand beach episode. You know, that's always a good time to like, hey, we've been through a lot of like things. Let's take a break. Or, you know, if ever there's a day that like one of your players can't make it, you know, that's another thing, scheduling all that stuff and being flexible. If they can't make it, beach episode. You know, like,
and don't underestimate the power of downtime.
Yep.
Downtime, people can role play and get to know each other as characters. They can buy essential equipment that they might need later on. Or it could be a relaxing thing from, okay, the last 3 sessions we fought an ancient white dragon. I need a drink.
So I had on the Bus and Cartels campaign, they've been dismantling a slavers network for a good 6 sessions, and they got to a port, and they were in character. They were all avid drinkers. They were drunk all the time. So I did a tavern brawl session where someone was harassing one of the characters with my permission. and it kicked off a tavern brawl where, like, it was just throwing punches. None of them were going to die or anything like that. At most, they were going to be knocked out. It was just something to laugh about, and like it gave them an opportunity to just describe what they were doing, like throwing bottles and chairs and everything like that.
Yeah, and we could go into more detail about how to keep things adaptable and open-ended. Right now we're about a little over an hour into this lesson, so I think we should take a break right now.
Yes.
So that our lovely professors and Mr. Doctor Professor can take a small break, go to the bathroom, get a drink, and we'll come back. We can look at what DM notes are supposed to look like, or at least what ours look like. So you have frame of reference, how to plan out a session, like what stages go into planning different things, and then we will take questions of all kinds.
Any kind of question.
Any kind of D&D question.
I would like to also, before we do this, I don't think we addressed this at the beginning. I know it may be common sense, but I just felt like putting this out there. This doesn't just go for D&D. This goes for any game that you can, DM. Like,
TTRPG.
Yeah, any RPG. So D&D, Savage Worlds, Twilight 2000, you name it, Cyberpunk, any out there. They're just 4 of my favorites.
Monster of the Week, Powered by Apocalypse.
Yeah. Keep going.
Yeah.
That one game with the people.
Oh, Traveller.
The one game in the place.
Oh god, Traveller.
Catan.
Traveller. That's good.
All right, so we will see you all after break, and we'll get back into it.
Yes.
All right. So welcome back from your break. Your hydration check.
Hydrate or dihydrate.
I'll just drink Dr. Pepper.
I rolled a
Do
nat
as I
one.
say, not as I do.
Water. The key to life. Totally not vodka.
Make a hydration check. Roll a nat one. Nope, that's motor oil.
Okay, then. All right. So next thing we're going to get into is the bread and butter of any DM and also some players.
I
Notes.
don't know how I feel about that. I'm quite scared how he's. What are you eating?
Apples.
I thought it was. I'm thinking I don't know how to feel about this. You're eating them passively aggressively.
All right. So note taking. For players, it's very cut and dry. You take notes about the people you meet, where you've been, what you've done, and you can recall things better. For DMs, it's a little different. You're writing what's going to happen, not what has happened. You're also writing what has happened because sometimes what you wrote was going to happen didn't exactly happen because the players decided something else.
Welcome to the
Going to
note-taking paradox.
Oh, I never do that.
So
I take mental notes.
Now,
I'm
doesn't
stumped.
work with ADHD.
I'm going to start with the first example of a page of my DM notes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people are afraid that if they don't take these super elaborate notes every time from like 3 months before session 1 through like the last session, that they're screwed, they're not a proper DM. I present the only notes I had for 3 sessions. Make cat statue. Now, this wasn't me just pulling sessions out of my ass and being like one of those, like, I don't prepare at all. I have the world built. I have different notes set aside for, like, okay, who's in what town? What stores are they? Who has what stuff? I have separate, like, pre-made encounters that they can reach if they're traveling, if they're in certain areas. So like there was always stuff to do. There was always stuff for me to draw from. But because they weren't doing anything plot relevant, they were doing a lot of downtime stuff, a lot of traveling. I didn't have anything to write down. Other notes I've done has been like page-long things.
Yeah. Note taking, shorthand if you know shorthand. Me, because I'm me. I'm very just like detailed because yeah, that's just me. But don't stress too much. You know, it's not the end of the world if you forget something, because your players are probably going to remind you, and you can always play it off. It was like, oh yeah, I meant to do that. You know, and it's really only important if something needs to be changed. So like if you had something set up and your players did something else and like they're deviating from that plan, then the note taking to help you kind of remember that to rebuild something or kind of alter the path or figure out how you're going to get them back on the main path, that kind of stuff. And also, like, sometimes your players may come up with lore for your world in their role play, and you're like, that's a good idea, and you want to add it to your world, you know?
Yeah, like just like that's why you have that little notepad next to you, just like yeah. Any more?
Yeah.
For a prime example of just how sporadic and confusing notes can get, in one campaign, I have notes in 4 random notebooks on 4 pages. 4 different, all different pages. There's no sense of organization that is mandatory.
For the better organized, there are ways to do it, but yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Like, So many notebooks.
Just me. When it comes to note taking, OCD helps.
As long as you
I
can
don't tend to.
keep of them, and that if they're handwritten, they are legible.
Yes.
Yeah, like I say, I don't usually take notes, but when I do, oh wait, so this is gonna sound like one of those memes now, innit? I don't always take notes, but when I do, what I tend to do is if I'm doing 2 sessions, I have a notebook. I will start one side of the notebook the right way up, and then for the second session, if I don't have another notebook, I will flip the notebook and I will write from back to the middle. So eventually the notes will eventually meet in the middle like that, and then I can separate them so that I know which ones are which. Is that too organized?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a slightly different experience with note taking, but that's because of previous work and the way that I've learnt. So I tend to do a lot of world building before I make a campaign. I figure out the geography, the geopolitics before that, and also like places of interest. So when people visit a place, I tend to write notes of how did they behave in that place, who did they meet, and it's in a sort of Excel, Google Sheets spreadsheet with links to like Word docs all over the place, but it's a way of organizing in my mind. Like if they were to go back to that place, how would they be received? Well, are they going to be treated nicely because they were nice and did good missions there, or did they burn the place down to the ground? It's practically non-existent, and the innkeeper is rightfully pissed at them. And that's just from my experience doing briefs and geographical briefing in my previous work. That's the way I organize it anyway.
Yeah.
Overall, what I think the approach here is everyone's method of note taking is different. Yours is not invalid.
Yeah.
If you want to make cat statue as your notes for 3 sessions in a row, don't steal my idea. Make it a different set of 3 words.
Build dog obelisk. There you go.
Perfect.
We got to make a campaign out of that now.
Or just building different like.
You literally said build dog obelisk and
Summoned.
you summoned the doggo.
I am the sand guardian, guardian of the sand.
So, there's not much else to say about like how to keep your notes other than just make sure you know what happened last, what you want to happen next, and make sure that you know that whether you have left room for it or just know that the player choices might change what your notes of what will happen will be. You might say, okay, they turn left and go towards the cave, and when they see the cave, they go inside and see XYZ. They might choose, like, yeah, we're not going to go in the cave. That looks dark and scary.
This cave. That's a nice cave. Let's move on. You just like.
You're going to have to adapt to that, and it'll go against your notes, but then you could write in, like, next to your cave notes, okay, they never went in the cave, so if they ever go back, they have all those encounters in the cave.
Yeah.
Whatever treasure's in there, they could still find.
One thing,
cash reward.
the one thing to kind of go off of that as well. Make your world living outside the player's perception. So what I mean by that, and this kind of goes in with the note taking, is if they don't go into that cave, what are the consequences of them not going in that cave? If they don't go to a town that you had set up for them to go to, what are the consequences of them not going to that town? You know, what happens by the player choices? And you can make notations of that, of like, oh, they did this to this person. Well, now if they encounter maybe this person, they're going to treat the party a little bit differently because they were either nice or rude to a friend of theirs, or or if they go back, they're going to be nice or rude to the players, depending on how they act. If they don't go help a town that is in need, well, maybe that town's destroyed. It's no longer there. So kind of give those little world evolving things around your players, because that's going to really immerse them in the world, that things are still happening outside of their own perception.
Yes. And to give that a lovely pop culture reference that I love to give because I've played too many hours of it, it's falling into the Skyrim effect. So Skyrim is great for the sake of you could play a bunch of side quests. You can open world explore as much as you want. Downside is the plot waits for you. In D&D, the plot doesn't wait for you. There are consequences to not doing the main plot.
Yeah, pretty much. That's. Go on, Joe.
My mind is cast back to a note that I took on the Button Cartels campaign again. On something like the 6th session, they killed a noblewoman. Thinking she was a particular bounty hunter, whatever. They found plans for the specialized rifle in her wardrobe, whatever. And they pretty much nuked her and her entire guest list in the villa. Unknown to them, it was her brother that was the bounty hunter. And they figured out his name, figured out his likeness. And there was this one wizard that was cast sending constantly to him, just mocking him, and I just kept on making a tally, not so much notes, but just a checklist of how pissed off this bounty hunter wanted to kill this little kid. He was playing a 10-year-old necromancer, casting sending, being like, we killed your sister, what are you going to do now? You're not big and hard enough to come after it. And I just made a little checklist of how often he did this, to just get in my mind how mad he was, how bloodthirsty he was for this 10-year-old child's head. So it's good to keep a note of what they do when they do it, and what effect it's going to have elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that's all we can really go into notes, because it all depends on your own style and note taking. As long as you can keep your world organized so the way that you can effectively run your sessions. So we can go more into detail in later sessions about this next point, but it's nice to have just general what you should be expecting from yourself when building sessions. So let's just go with different scenarios, Mr. Dr. Professor Words. What pieces would you throw into your notes when building a session that involves the party going into a cave in the side of a mountain to hunt down a creature for a bounty?
So I would probably make note of their motivations. Is this a part of the main story? If this is a prepared thing, or if this is just something they decide to do because they caught wind of this information. Then I would take note of how they approached this, who they interacted with, how they interacted with them, depending on the importance of the NPC. If none of the NPCs are important, then I'll probably just be they were jerks. And just their success, whether or not they succeed or not, how they succeed, and how they act and behave, after they succeed. Are they pompous? Are they humble? Are they greedy? All these things, because those are going to affect the dynamic of the NPCs that they interact with in the future. And if this was like a big bounty and maybe it gives them a bit of notoriety. Is there a guild that handles the bounties? Is the guild going to be upset that a non-guild group took this bounty? You know, like all these little details that you can kind of add into the world and how that affects things. You know, so it's just kind of fun ways to play with player choices and give them some interesting little tidbits of world lore that you have, like going back to the guild thing. Like, did they just go up to this board, don't realize that it's a guild board, take the bounty and go without getting any other information? You know, if so, then they probably didn't go through the proper channels, and now this guild's going to be upset at them and more than likely not give them a reward. They're like, well, thanks for the help, you know. So like, you know, kind of things like that.
What about the cave itself? Like, what components would you put in that, from like entering the cave to leaving the cave, dead or alive?
So it would just kind of depend on, you know, the importance of the cave. Is this a mining cave that this monster recently made home to, and it's affecting the ability of the town to get their resources and trade? And, you know, how is it affecting the economy of that town because of it? And that can kind of go along with, like, are they going to be greedy afterwards? You know, like, if this town's been suffering for a while, they may not have a lot to give. You know, the details of the cave. You know, are there any traps? Is there any sort of like pertinent information that they can learn within the cave? You know, is there any rare materials? You know, just kind of things that you can throw at them to discover or not. And if they don't discover it, maybe you can make use of it later. Somebody else came along after they cleared it out and found this rare object that is extremely powerful, and when they leave, they destroy the town with it. You know, so I'm like, yeah.
All right. Joe, Mister, I got a degree, but I'm not a professor. What kind of things would you put in a session? Let's add some politics into it in a very words things.
English.
Yes. Upper class city. More not downtime, but they're trying to negotiate with the ruler over anything, really. Could be over land, it could be them trying to parlay between kingdoms.
Negotiations, basically.
Yeah.
So you're wanting me to describe what the city's like, or what the people there are like?
Just the general, what types of things would you make sure are prepared for a session when you know the party's goal is to go to a city to on behalf of another ruler for negotiation purposes? Diplomatic mission. That's the words.
So I always look at things from a geographic point. So like, where does the city lie? Is it in a rich, fertile land where there's lots of farmland? Is it lumbering land? Is it minerals, mines? Is it a dwarven kingdom where the city's underground? That all affects how I would describe the city as to whether it's industrial, if it's Tudor-like, if it's medieval. I tend to always put a slum into a city because it is a great place to put like a criminal organization or rogues, whatever, merchant sectors. But it also affects the way that the leader thinks, because if you're wanting to negotiate with someone, you don't want to negotiate with something that they've already have. So I'd write down notes about, it's a dwarven kingdom. They probably, they're underground, probably don't have that much farmland. Get my child up. Okay.
Words will
Yeah.
get
So they'll be rich in minerals and metals and everything like that. And if that's what you're after, then that's brilliant. But what can you offer? And that's the way that I'd like my party to think is what can you offer? Or how can you persuade them? Instead of just doing a random persuasion check, is how are you going to persuade them? And also like how it also affects their behavior slightly if they're a rich kingdom. Then the leader can be either really humble or really aloof and condescending to the party, and that will affect the way that they affect and interact with the party. Or if they're from a poorer kingdom, they might actually they might either be spiteful or they might be grateful that they've come along. It all depends on. I would write notes of the basis of where this kingdom is or where the city is, and describe the city and the people in there based off that. And it would go into detail about merchant sectors and foundry sectors if it's a dwarven kingdom, or market sector, or mill sector, or whatever.
Yeah,
Personally.
so prepared for them to not only negotiate and knowing what this kingdom has at the negotiating table, but if they want to spend some downtime there, maybe do some shopping, see what this city has to offer them just personally, they can still do that, leaving it open for their choices.
Yeah. I try and prepare for that as much as possible, in all honesty. Obviously, you're not going to be prepared as someone will be like, oh, can I get a dog?
If you think you're prepared for every option, you're not prepared for every option.
You can try. You can try, but it never
All right,
works.
Teaspoon. Why don't you go through the preparations of a session that the party decides to go for the always infamous hunt for bandits that always end up being a thing in RPGs of these kinds?
Well, I would probably start obviously to where they are in proximity of the world, because obviously you're going to find different types of bandits, and they're going to be in different types of. Come on, Geographic Man. What am I trying to explain? Like,
what's the words you're trying to say?
in terms of what terrain they'll be in, so obviously, like if you're gonna if they're in more of a sort of like woodland sort of, or like forest built up area, you would probably go for like bandits like that like to ambush people in the forest, like camouflaged up and everything. But obviously you might get like the odd, if it's like on more of a flat lands with open roads, then you're probably going for more like highwaymen. So if I was going to prepare for that, so it would, like I say, it would all depend on whereabouts in the world they are before I did anything. I mean, for example, I'm taking a lot of my experience from Star Wars at the moment, my Star Wars game.
Pick a location and then work from there.
Okay, let's say, for example, easy one, Tatooine. If you're going to go with Tatooine.
Don't read my motherfucking mind. I was about to say Tatooine. I'm like, you know what? I'll give him the choice.
If we're going to go with Tatooine, you're probably looking more like if they're wandering the wastes, they may encounter Tusken Raiders. They're your favourite ones that like to pop up and shoot people for fun. Or, I mean, you could even say that they meet a bunch of Jawas, and especially if they have droid companions. And I just go from there, basically. I mean, I let a battle pan out. I say, you see a bunch of Tusken Raiders coming towards you with a bunch of cycler rifles aimed at you. What do you want to do? I give them a minute to give them a second react, and I go, okay, now they start firing at you. So, I give them that chance to prepare for an incoming attack. If they want to search for the raiders themselves, then I would say start looking for obviously bantha tracks or that sort of thing, looking for what really a raider, depending on what game you're playing, would have in that sort of setting. So, my God, dear God, I've just seen what you put.
Yeah. So it's either the bandits come to them, and it's just straight up battle, or they gotta go searching for them, and you got the skill checks prepared. You know what they gotta look for.
Yeah, you obviously got your tracking and survival, like, would obviously go under years like survival and stuff like that.
They have choices in front of them, but you know what options they have that will actually get them to progress.
Yeah,
with what they need to do.
Yeah, and I mean, if they wanted to get clever, if they really wanted to get clever, they could bait out Jawas with the dead droid and just leave it in the middle of the waste and just wait for them.
Yeah. All right. Glitch. Let's go with.
I mean, isn't this guy supposed to... I'm going to say, isn't this guy supposed to be a glitch in the system? Like, why is he still here?
Because I wrote him into the code.
Oh, God damn it.
He is now part of the code.
I have been integrated.
So, party needs to infiltrate, let's just say, a prison to get someone out. What things would you involve in this session to make sure that you're prepared and also that things are ready for the players to kind of fit whatever decisions they make?
For a prison break, first I'm gonna look in my notes and go, all right, I have a location, I know where this prison's at. What details do I already know? Second, I'm gonna look, how hard do I want this to be? Difficulty level, effectively. Is this a main story mission where if they don't break this guy out, is it going to completely derail what's going on in the campaign? Or is it they're trying to break a guy out because he was an NPC that helped them out 3 sessions back? But from there, simple preparation I'm going to have an idea. A basic map is usually good to have if you can make one or get one made. From there, something simple like what patrols are there? What prisoners are there? What cells might be locked or unlocked? What times? Stuff that's simple, but can play into it. What time of day? A note on if they go in at this time of day, what might happen. If they go in at this time, something might happen. It provides a loose structure that they can kind of weasel their way around a bit, but it provides a good way to get it going.
All right, so preparing the layout and getting ready for whatever plan they come up with.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Working with the players, effectively. And dating, I guess. If that makes sense.
All right. And best for last is moi. I know, I'll be here until Ivy tells me to go away.
Headmaster, what sort of notes would you make about a tavern? Just a good old tavern in the middle of nowhere. Sort of a stagecoach stop.
Stagecoach stop? Okay, well, first I want to decide, do I want this tavern to be special at all? If the answer is yes, then obviously it has a basement that no one is allowed into until the party decides we want to go in there. If they decide they don't want to go in there, then I probably have wasted a long time making a very, very large dungeon. If they choose that they want to just stay in the tavern, obviously gotta come up with different drinks for them to have, including their con saves only to make for each drink, because they do be getting drunk. Prepare a definite assortment of tavern games, such as the different playing sets that they can get, especially with starting equipment, 3-dragon ante, dragon chests, dice games. Definitely make up the bartender's name, because I actually forgot to do that for one session. I prepared everything in the town except the bartender's name, and that was the first question they asked. And then just come up with the environment and the patronage if they choose to go to that dungeon that I made, because if it's in the middle of nowhere, it's gotta have something special to it. Definitely come up with the how they can get in. Put in multiple ways of entry where, like, okay, the rogue can pick the lock, but if there's no rogue in the party or the rogue's just having an off day, and I don't know why my phone decided to activate the Google Assistant right now. If the rogue's having an off day and they just can't pick the lock, it could
Go away,
be
Google.
forced open, or like a magic spell would be able to open it. Like, give them multiple options so that it's not focused around, okay, if this one person does this one thing, then they're in. And then I decide, okay, how big do I want this? What kinds of rooms do I want? Do I want a puzzle room? Do I want a trap room? Do I want a trap puzzle room? Which we will get into in a different lesson, because I have tons of good ideas for those. You can ask Ivy. She was in one on Thursday. Is there a boss at the end of the dungeon? Is there loot? Is the tavern owner secretly a big ancient bronze dragon who's hoarding his loot?
There's always a boss and loot at the end of a dungeon.
So,
You just don't know what kind.
I actually just remembered I have something that's really, 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 really useful for taverns. And this is not like I'm not being paid to do this because, you know.
Unless
Yeah,
the company he's about to mention decides to say, we'll sponsor him.
Yeah, I don't know if they are still making these because it was an old Kickstarter that someone I know like helped, and the only place I found them was on eBay, but they're being sold by the people that Kickstarter, and it is called Who is in the Tavern, and it is 2 decks full of NPCs that you can pull at random, and it tells you the characters, and like they have little art on them, so you can see what they look like. You know, it's really cool. And so like this guy, his name is Benji. He looks like I don't know if it's going to focus. Oh, it focused right as I was pulling it. Yeah, like, he's like
That
a
looks
Leo,
cool.
and, you know, his name is Benji.
His wares if you have coin.
His profession is a shadow stalker. He's a quiet, observant, and quick. He has no family. He has no local ties. He has a very high income level. And he has possible connections to the Thieves Guild. He's a Thieves Guild member. And then there's an option for rolling a d6. And when you roll that, say you roll a 1, best way to vanish why is he in the tavern? Best way to vanish is to be around everyone. Quietly celebrating his last score, making sketches of everyone in the tavern, looking after a certain fellow adventurer, random fist pump when the music drops, practicing balancing as many cups as he can on the tips of his fingers. Yeah, like, so you have options from being a thief to circus act.
That actually sounds like
that is really cool. Hashtag not sponsored unless.
Yeah. And like there's even tavern stats too. So like their alcohol tolerance, appetite, their preach, perform, bar fighting, stealth, gaming, and gossip.
That is great.
So yeah, it's really cool. Yeah.
How much do they go for on eBay?
They weren't that expensive. I think they were like $10 or something like that. I can't remember.
Is that it?
Yeah, they're really not expensive at all, because I think because this was a really old Kickstarter. I had to do some digging to find them.
All
right. So overall synopsis of building a session: you got end goal in mind. You know where they're starting. The things you put in the middle are the obstacles that are in their way, whether it's something as simple as how expensive are the drinks in this tavern, or those bandits want to kill me.
Where they are, where
or
they
whatever.
want to be. How can I stop them from getting there?
You know what obstacles they have, and you've also written in how they can overcome the obstacles. If it's the bandits themselves, you know they're gonna kill them, or they could talk their way out. If it's a locked door, what ways do you allow them to get past this locked door? Because if anyone watches Critical Role, you know that there are multiple ways to not get past the locked door. And you could throw in a lot of detail, you could throw in a little detail, as long as it is, what's the word? Words, help me with words.
What was the context?
Past, present tense, future tense. Well,
Being able to bring all your parts of the session together so it works.
Cohesive?
Yeah.
Yes. See, words is our words guy.
That'll be
I've been waiting all lesson to say something like that.
So that's going to be 3 easy payments of $9.99 and 1 hard payment of $43.25.
Should have billed me before.
Is that
I think we should answer that one question from earlier, and then
Yes.
I am sadly going to have to
So
bounce.
we do have one question from earlier. If anyone does have any other questions, feel free to ask. So the question before was, if the party is non-good aligned, evil or neutral, they seem to be cohesive and last, maybe due to mutual assured destruction. Good/neutral parties seem to implode or fall apart before PCs get past 6th level. Teaspoon, why don't you start with your own little view on this and bring out the mug.
Bring out the mug.
Yeah.
Okay, so when it comes to alignment, I saw a picture on this, and I like to view it like this because it very appealed to me because I'm British. So I look at alignments like holding a mug. Ignore the Starbucks coffee logo. We're totally not sponsored. Do I need to cover this? I'll cover this.
If no one wants to sponsor us,
Not sponsored. Example.
not sponsored unless they want to.
So, lawful good holds a cup like this because, tip up, cheerio, hip hop, they are the lawful boys. This is how you hold a cup correctly. Neutral good, you're probably looking more along the lines of that. That's your neutral good in the middle. Chaotic good, holding like that. Then you've got your true neutrals, which are more so like that. Then you've got, I know I've done the chaotic good wrong. The chaotic good's that. That's chaotic good. That's true neutral. That's lawful neutral. Chaotic neutral was it again? I think it was that.
Chaotic neutral, I think you had it like this.
I did. I had it towards the top. Yes, chaotic neutral's like this. Lawful evil is like this. You do not hold a mug like this because this is how you scold yourself.
Depends on what's in the mug.
If you put anything but hot drink in a cup in a mug, what is wrong with you?
Cold
That's
drink.
different. That's different. It's a metal mug. I heard that. So that's lawful evil. Neutral evil is like that. And chaotic evil is like that. Yes. That is how I look at
Okay.
yes, alignments. I am now very tired and I'm now going to go to bed.
Okay.
But
Bye.
to
So
kind of
thank
like-
you, Professor Teaspoon.
Yes.
You're welcome. It's been a pleasure and we look
I'm-
forward to seeing you next time.
I know you have a counter to that words.
I'm holding
Put
Okay.
it down.
Okay.
Put it down. Put it
Okay.
down.
I know you have a counter to that word, so I'm going to add to that first, and then you can counter us both.
So I wasn't countering. I was just 2 cents.
Yeah. Well, you have a opinion opposite of like how the alignment should work, or
oh,
you're
yeah.
anti-alignment.
I can dip. That's fine.
Get
Okay.
out of here. I mean, never mind.
Okay, I can
Love
go.
you.
Where's my thing?
Okay,
there it
so-
is. Wait, where? Okay, bye.
We are the professionals here.
Bye.
Only the most professional.
Oh boy.
Don't give me that look, Joe. So I have a slightly different view of how the alignments are. I don't use a mug. I use a line. So there's a line. One side is good. The other side is evil. Now, on the good side, you got your lawful good. They create extra lines between themselves and the big line. You break one of those, same as breaking them all. Neutral good is you know which side of the line to be on, but you don't really pay attention to which side of the line you're on. Well, not which side of the line you're on. Where on that side of the line you're on. One day you're close to it. The other day you're very far from it. You're just kind of flowing. Chaotic good is the kind that gets as close to the line as they can without going over. And they try to do that purposefully most of the time.
Oh, a second. Cameras have kind of gone a little.
Yes.
Okay.
It's okay. They could still hear my
Okay.
beautiful voice, and that's what's massive. Okay. So I will still talk with my hands because I will do that. So then you have your evils. Lawful evil, because they follow a set of rules still, is the same as lawful good, except on the evil side, but for, selfish gains and world domination and stuff like that. Neutral evil is about the same. They have their own agenda. They know what they want to do. They don't care who gets hurt, but they're not going to purposefully be evil. If they're evil, awesome. If they're not, oh well, I got what I wanted. Chaotic evil is the one that is supposed to be the most unpredictable, and one day they're super far deep into the line of evil. The next they're all the way on the side of good, acting like your best friend, only to stab you in the back for eating their last taco 6 months ago.
Right.
How dare they? Yes. The neutrals, we got true neutral, finds a spot on the line that they like, lays down on it. Lawful neutral stays on the line but leans towards good because it's inconvenient not to follow the laws of society. They are following the rules out of convenience and because they don't want to be in jail, not because it's the right thing to do. And then you got chaotic neutral, which just plays jump rope with the line.
Fair enough.
So these aren't like you have to be a certain way to play with these alignments. They are the guidelines to how you should act.
Yeah. I am not necessarily anti-alignment. I just don't typically use alignment anymore. I used to be like hardcore, like this character is this, especially like 3.5. But as I've played more, alignment is to me a guideline. It is not like how you're always going to be, because characters change, they grow. The things that they experience are going to affect their behavior. The things that they decide to do are going to affect their behavior and outlook on life. So like a good character can turn bad and a bad character can turn good. So alignments to me are just kind of like, just kind of your, just like, I feel a bit more neutral depending on certain situations. Like, say a king is being a dickbag. How's your character going to react to that? If you're a chaotic evil character and you hardline that, you're kind of like putting yourself in a box that your evil character is probably not going to care about that. What if your chaotic evil character like hates oppression, but because their evil is because of oppression? So if they go against this king, that may not necessarily be an evil act. especially in the eyes of the people being oppressed. So, as far as the question goes, like these different alignments, how they last longer in campaigns compared to your goody two shoe characters. For me, my perspective is how interesting the campaign is based off of the characters' choices and behaviors. So if they're just straight up like, I'm going to find the most good thing to do out of every situation, on a playing side of things, that can actually get a little bit boring because it's just atypical. There's not a lot of rounded play. There's not a lot of interesting things that you can do other than I'm just going to be, good. I'm going to be that stereotypical, like, I'm here to save the day, So as a DM, throw something at them that's going to question their moral code.
Something that follows the law, but seems morally wrong.
Yeah. So that's going to give that player growth and interest to keep playing. And your murder hobos, the reason why they last longer is because it's fun. Like it's just like, I'm just going to go around and have fun every time, but that can also get stale over time as well. So
Yes,
it's all about changing the dynamic of the behaviors of the character and throwing curveballs at them to make them question their character, to make them question their character's choices.
Glitch then Joe.
So
that
that
have
is
your hands up.
my take on your question, and I think you have a few other
We'll
questions.
get deeper into alignment and how it affects roleplay next week when we talk roleplay.
Okay.
Glitch.
To cover my perspective on the question, I've actually had that happen a few times where I have a party, people that get together for a campaign, and an evil party stays together, whereas a good party, after a certain amount of time, just starts to crumble. It doesn't seem like you did anything wrong, but they just start to fall apart. A thing I've noted for that as to a reason why characters that are, in general, take our own society as a bit of an example, I guess. Neutral versus evil are generally viewed as the outliers, whereas the good are the people who everybody expects. They all have good things that they're trying to do, and eventually they don't have reason to stay together anymore. They don't have an overarching thing to keep them together. Whereas the evil characters, simply them being the outliers will keep them together. It's an overarching thing that will make them want to stay together because that gives them friends, that gives them people to talk to, it gives them people to live with. So a piece of advice I could give is to try and give the good party that you're dealing with that's starting to pull apart at the edges a more overarching reason to stay together. And that can be something very simple or very complex. Joe?
So I was just going to expand on it a bit more. Like, it might not necessarily be because your campaign is going stale. It could very well be, but an evil party, say all of the players are trying to install a dictatorship. That is a very clear in-game end goal that they've got in their minds, and they're working towards that, and everything in their mission is to do that. But with a good party, what is their end game? What are they? And that's something that you can talk about in session 0, is what is your player's end game? What are they wanting to get to the end of this? With a lawful evil, you can also question their morals a little, see why they're trying to install a dictatorship, for example. Are they trying to place themselves in charge because they want to improve people's conditions, or are they just straight out evil? And you can build encounters around that. But for the good players, especially if they don't have a very clear end goal, is string them along with a higher and higher good purpose, instead of just a casual we're going to beat up bandits because they're breaking the law, sort of thing. Is you string them along with higher stakes towards that end, in my opinion, anyway.
Yes.
They kind of have like a follow-up to that where it says player claims neutral by means of balance. For every good or evil act, they must do the opposite to balance things. Would that really be neutral? And I guess it depends on how they're playing that. To me, that's not really neutral because that's just giving them an excuse to just do whatever they want. Neutrality is a decision. It is a choice. That is not saying that they can do anything good or anything evil. That is like, if there's a king and they're enslaving their people, or well, we don't want to go that way out. Sorry, scratch that. If there's a king and they're raising the taxes on the people, a true neutral person is going to look at that and probably be like, they're the king. They have that right to choose. You know, if the players are like the NPCs are asking for help, they may choose to help, but their moral code, it may not be because the king is wrong, but because they were asked to help and they decided to help. But not because they want to do the good thing. They might just like, well, maybe they're just getting paid enough. It doesn't mean like, oh, this now they see this person that they don't like, they can just go out and murder that person. No, that doesn't mean that. Like, it is a dedication to being neutral. So think of like a great neutral character would be Spock from Star Trek, or Vulcans in general. They're a very neutral race. They're a very logical race. And so their decisions are going to be based off of logic and assessing and determining what the benefits are for them to act. That, to me personally, that does not mean they get to do whatever they want. It doesn't mean that they go get to play Robin Hood for one decision and then go on a murder spree in the next town.
Another way that you could put it maybe is, say there's two warring clans and you don't want any stake in this, but you find out that there's some demonic presence that is causing them to do this, and it's not actually the leader's choice or the people's choice. Then you'd go fight that demonic because they're acting in a way that is affecting that choice. Aside from being a true neutral, you don't care who wins out of that clan or whatever. You just want to make sure that it is their own doing. And after that presence has been washed away, then you'd end up with you don't care what they do after. If they carry on fighting, then that's up to them. You don't hold stakes on it.
Yeah. And the whole keeping a good party together is normally they're fighting for some kind of greater good, and depending on backstory, it's easy for that to fizzle out when the greater good isn't always showing up, and they could see firsthand in towns where they could serve like more immediate good. Evil and neutral, I really wish that I said this like 2 minutes ago before Ben left the chat, because I'm going to reference Dice Cream Sandwich's Monday Night campaign. Evil and neutral characters keep each other around because they choose to. Like, they find some usefulness in keeping you around, whether it's something simple and nice, like just, hey, they're good company, I like them, they're my friends, let's hang out. Or something of, okay, I'm an evil character and this person could be a good patsy down the line, or I don't have a lot in brawn, but I need some muscle.
One thing that I just kind of thought of to kind of help, like if that is an active player in one of your campaigns, or if this is not, but anyways, this is just something I thought of. If it's an active player that you are experiencing right now, that they're trying to be neutral by doing a really good thing and a really evil thing, and you want to rein that in and kind of make it more of a neutrality decision, you could probably put some form of divine aspect into it. Maybe there is some sort of deity now that is watching this player and their actions, and maybe they are like a deity of balance, and so they're watching this player act out all these crimes, and they're looking at it like they're not being balanced. They're being chaotic, to be honest.
Yeah.
And so you can have this deity show them true neutrality, and you can have it to be where it's like you are not, being what you claim to be. You do not, honor this path, and because you are not honoring this path, this is going to happen. And you just confront that issue in game and make the player choose, make that player grow.
Yeah, and we'll get into this a lot more when we talk role play in 2 weeks, or when we bring in storytelling. Just the one last piece that I'll leave off is on this question, and then we'll answer the final question. Adventuring hooks is what gets them in the party in the first place. You don't have to only use them at the beginning of the campaign. If they need some kind of other reason to stay, another adventuring hook, like how Word said, maybe some divine intervention of a god saying, hey, my child, do the thing, then bring in another adventuring hook. Give them another reason to stay. Now, our last question was recommendations for reining in a player that always seems to succeed at everything, even things they shouldn't, outshines the rest of the party.
I got one.
Go for it.
Every player, every character is got a flaw. They've got something that they're really good at, and something that they're not so good at. For example, a barbarian is not going to do so well against something that flies. Now, what you do is you balance the encounter for the rest of the party to reflect what they're good at, and where your other player will take a bit of a backseat, not entirely, not entirely, but play to their strengths, not theirs. So go through the monster manual, go through source books, everything like that. Pick out a monster that will kind of negate their abilities, but play to the other player's strengths. That's basically it. Sometimes you need to adjust your encounters to make everybody else feel like a hero, and let them take a bit of a rest from being at the forefront.
Humble them.
Yes. Don't say, I'm going to put this guy in his place. I'm going to make sure this guy's going to learn he can't be the end all be all. But make sure that he knows, okay, there are other people in the party that have skills I don't.
Yeah. So a part of a DM's job is to ensure that every player's skills and abilities are being utilized, like Joe was saying. So, before Tasha's, Rangers were pretty undesirable, but people still played them. They still enjoyed the class. And a lot of the reasons why people didn't like Rangers because DMs sometimes would be biased and not provide opportunities for Rangers to excel in what they were good at before Tasha's. So that's kind of a similar situation. So if you have this one person that's always good at everything, you can humble them, make their player question, the character question their abilities. That can be a great opportunity for character growth, to where maybe they won't be so headstrong into trying everything every time because they have that fear of failure now, or just designing things, as what was said, to highlight the skills and abilities of your other players.
Yes, but always make sure that there's multiple outs. Like, I will reference the dungeon room I ran on Thursday. It was a lightning room where lightning struck random spots in the room, and there was a large mechanical golem in front of the door that was powered off. Now, I had it where, okay, it's very easy. You hit it with any kind of lightning damage, and there was only one person in the party that could do lightning damage. It will turn on and it can move. But if they don't figure that out, if they can't do it, if somehow they get knocked out by the lightning, I gave them another out where, okay, if they do enough on a strength check, they could push this thing out of the way. So you don't want to set up that player to fail, but make sure that you do stuff that can highlight and give that spotlight to someone else. But if you need to brute force something, sometimes you just gotta brute force something. Glitch?
Another piece that can tie into each of those approaches respectively in its own way. You have a player that is outshining others even when you don't think they should. More of a story-based approach and potentially RP-based rather than combat like Joe's was, is to apply the logic of too much of a good thing is no longer a good thing. Like, say they succeed a little too well on stealing something as a rogue. They've gained the attention of someone that they don't want the attention of. And that can apply across the board. And you can use that to tie it in with Mr. Dr. Professor Words over here with his humbling.
Yes.
Have the attention of a person who is very powerful and is going to be very detrimental to be in their eye, have caught their eye. That person comes after them. And that can be the humbling thing. All of them can tie together.
Yes. So. And if you don't feel comfortable, like, this could be potentially viewed as, okay, you're plotting against one player, specifically putting things in that he's weak so that other people can shine. One, that's balanced. You're going to put things in where one person's going to shine, another person can't. That person will have their time to shine. But also, you want to communicate with all your players. If you notice, okay, this person is consistently doing everything for the party. He's not just the brains, he's the mouth, he's the muscle, he's the one investigating traps and disarming them while solving the puzzles, talking their way out of situations, and dealing all the damage when they can't talk their way out. He's doing all the roles. He's being a one-man party. That's when you talk to the player and say, hey, listen, I understand that you're trying to help. You're trying to be a good player. But part of being a good player is that Dungeons & Dragons is a team sport. Everyone has a role to play, even if some roles overlap because, like, maybe everyone wants to play a bard this campaign. Everyone deserves a time to shine, and a good player will recognize that and see that every now and then they should take a step back and let someone else take the spotlight, because then it becomes a boring, repetitive campaign of, okay, they're just going to do it. Okay, they're just going to do this. Okay, just let me know when it's my turn in combat, basically.
All right.
So, does anyone have any last notes for that question?
No, I think we covered it pretty well.
All right, so that is it for lesson number 1 of our DMing Academy. I am your headmaster, Do-Good. Everyone want to give their plugs again on the way out?
Yes.
On the notebook.
We will start with Mr. Dr. Professor Words.
Yeah, I am Words for Sale. I don't know why I just went Southern.
Maybe because you are?
I've only been here for a little bit. Well, since 2000. Anyways, I am Words for Sale. You can find me pretty much everywhere. Twitch. I haven't been streaming lately. Instagram, Twitter. I am also a part of a stream collective called Stream of Many Things, where we have several a week. I also stream on Tuesdays on that One Blonde Nerds stream, where we do ADHD and D. And I will be in Andrew's stream on Sundays. I do a lot of D&D. So there are plenty of opportunities to see this pretty face.
It's so pretty.
That's all I can think of at this moment.
All right, Glitch. Our adoptive Glitch.
Yes, I am the glitch in the matrix that everyone seems to have adopted here. Well, I'm Glitch the Music Man here on Twitch, as well as the same on TikTok. Chasing around, you'll find that name streamlined through pretty much everything. So if you want to see more of this, follow the name. But other than that, thank you all for stopping in.
All right, Joe with the degrees. That's your
Singular.
name now.
Singular.
Sorry, degree. That's still more degrees than me.
It's degrees because he's so hot.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll find me on TikTok under Joe Steiner. It's mostly heathen, Norse pagan stuff on there. Heathen Gaming Table on Twitch, where I'll stream occasionally on Saturdays.
All right, and again, I am Headmaster Dogood HVZ on Twitch and the TikToks. I live stream my D&D campaigns every other Sunday. We might be playing tomorrow. I don't know. That depends on our DM. He's having a little bit of issues. I help out with the Offbeat Outlaw Discord as well as his Monday night live streams of D&D, which are amazing to watch. I will be on Words for Sales. I forget what's the name of your campaign.
History of the Archwizard.
That on Wednesdays on Stream Many Things. And I DM and play in other campaigns that aren't streamed. So thank you all for coming to this lesson. Our next lesson will be February 27th. We will be going over combat and roleplay.
Also, I would like to extend thanks to Ivy for providing us this platform and the help and support of getting this going. And you're amazing.
She's a very nice, pretty lady. Give her love.
Indeed.
Indubitably.
Oh, I haven't even begun sipping yet. Bye.
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 Uh,